Today is Guinea's presidential election, the first since the 2021 coup. Join us for the live coverage, debates and reports, minute by minute as the election transpires. 9 candidates, 1 seat. The race to the Guinean presidency is on. Incumbent transitional head, General Mamadi Doumbouya campaigns to transition to a civilian president, and 7 others are in the race for Guinea's top job. Today, over 6.7 million registered voters will deliver their verdicts on who becomes Guinea's next leader. Join West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar and online WADR.org, YouTube and Facebook for a full day's coverage. Guinea decides, WADR covers. This is the live coverage of the 2025 presidential election in Guinea.
Good afternoon and once again welcome to West Africa Democracy Radio broadcasting on 94.9 FM. We are live online at WADR.org. This is the third edition of WADR's special live coverage of the elections in Guinea, or better still, Guinea decides. I'm Abdullah Hassan alongside my colleague Augustine Colley, and we thank you for joining us for this in-depth election coverage. In this broadcast, we'll bring you voices and analysis from across the region. Our reporter is on the ground in Conakry, following developments as they unfold. Here in Dakar, we are also at the select centers where Christopher Aticho is monitoring the situation and speaking with Guineans in the diaspora. We'll be joined by a political expert from Ghana who will help us better understand the broader implications of this vote for democracy and stability in West Africa. Plus, we have a series of sectoral reports coming up examining how this election affects key areas of Guinean society and the economy. Once again, thank you for staying with us for this special broadcast of WADR's Guinea Decides. Well, Augustine, you are here with us in the studio for the third edition. Tell us, we know that polls open at 7 a.m. today in Conakry and, of course, diaspora. What do we know?
Well, so with more than 6 million registered voters expected to cast a ballot at the day ends, today polls are scheduled to close at 6 p.m. Transitional President General Mamadi Doumbouya was among the early voters this morning, alongside several other candidates, including Faya Milimolo, leader of the Liberal bloc. Meanwhile, outside Guinea, voting is also underway here in Dakar, as you stated, as well as in other locations across Senegal, including Kaolack, St. Louis, and Thiès, where Guineans in the diaspora are taking part in this electoral process. We will join Christopher Aticho in one of the select centers, but before that, here is a Guinean voter speaking to WADR after casting his ballot here in Dakar.
My name is Sheikh Mohammed Khairaba Jabi. Presently, I live in Dakar. So I'm Guinean from Kindia region. Today, the process electoral passed really well with joy and happiness. Every Guinean who came here for vote, really, everybody is really feeling better. No worry, no violence too.
As a Guinean, how does today's election really matter to you? How important is it for you as a Guinean, looking at the fact that you're voting once again towards a civilian rule?
Yes, I vote for my country because I wish the happiness, I wish the good development in my country, Guinea. Because when you look at Guinea, historically, from behind to now, Guinea, it has been a great side. When you look the first president in Guinea, who is Ahmed Sékou Touré, he was very, very, very determined man, and also he was very, very optimist man. He was always trying to pull out his brain, to bring out the country.
What are your expectations?
Yes, my expectation to that he will pass well with happiness. He will maybe everything can be all right.
What has been the major concerns of citizens in Guinea over the past years during the transition time?
Yes, the media concerning, yes, there was very happy for that, because everybody was concerning to the process for the electoral processes.
Sheikh Mohammed Jabi is a Guinean voter. We now turn to Christopher Waticho, who is at one of the designated centers here in Dakar. Hello, Chris. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Augustin colleague.
I know you've seen a lot and you've been out there for some hours now. What's the situation on the ground?
Well, today seems to be a very important day for Guineans, and they are actually trooping in to the voting center. As you rightly said, that there are 5 places in Senegal here where this particular diaspora voting is actually taking place. And currently, I find myself at the Eko Alassane Njai Alu center where voting is actually taking place. And in an interaction with electoral observers, they tell us that about 26,000 voters are expected in all of these particular 5 centers across Senegal. And also in each of these centers, the polling stations are expected to be 32 in each of these particular voting centers. And indeed, I can also say and confirm that people have actually trooped in here. Security has been very tight, and they are very excited to be part of this particular historic process that they deem it as one that would obviously determine the future of the country, looking at the fact that it is actually under a military junta rulership.
Now, Christopher, it's good that you are out there, and we do understand that when it comes to elections, the call more and more, what we hear is that there should be youth and women's participation. What do you see? Is that translating there where you are?
Yes, I can actually tell you that indeed there are more women coming in or trooping in, and then young people as well. Unfortunately, because of language barriers, so many of the women are unable to actually speak English to me. But they've actually been able to talk to my colleague on the French side, and they have actually expressed lots of happiness for this particular process. And currently, as I speak with you, I'm one of the polling stations where I'll be talking to one of the electoral observers who is actually facilitating the process of people coming in here to actually vote. She'll be joining me pretty shortly just to have a conversation about what has really been the translation of women and then youth participation in today's process. You're live on West Africa Democracy Radio, and your name, and tell us what has been the process so far in terms of women participating in today's election. Her name is Fatima, she tells me.
Okay, my name is Fatima.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So she was actually. Mm-hmm.
I'm not be able to pick like because I'm not.
Okay, Abdullah.
Well, Chris, it's obvious. I think what can happen sometimes when people find themselves just in front of the mic, they become almost speechless. So we understand, Chris, but you can just take us through what you see on your own.
Definitely. So as I was saying, that I see a lot of women come in here to actually vote, and also young people are also facilitating or participating in this particular process. I've also been able to see other party representatives. I've also seen the campaign electorate or campaign directorate of incumbent Mamadou Doumbouya also come here. Not Mamadou Doumbouya himself, but the campaign directorate and his team members come in here to also cast their ballot. It's been very peaceful, it's been very smooth, and people are still in the voting queue. At 6 o'clock, that is where voting is expected to actually end. And so far, so good. As I said early on, it's been peaceful and then generally very enduring, as people are willing to actually make a statement. Unfortunately for the media, what has actually been a barrier is the fact that we are denied access from going into the polling stations to actually go and then see how proceedings is like. Well, of course, you'd have to enter, and then an electoral officer would have to verify your card of being a Guinean citizen first before you be able to enter into the classroom. And then when you enter inside also, you'll be given your ballot paper to go and then cast your votes. But that is the process that we've been denied access to. But aside that, it's been a very tight security here as well, because from the start of the process, if you are not accredited as a media person to enter, you will not obviously be able to enter into the premises here as well. So that has been the situation. Tighter security in here, plus smooth coordination and a smooth process of all electoral activity here so far.
Can you tell us about the process? Is it speeded, or is there some delay in the voting process so far?
In terms of delay, I wouldn't say there's been some delays, because I would obviously say that if you're able to know the polling station that your voting is, you would just be able to just locate that. So possibly what would be the delay factor for many voters will have to be the fact that they'll now have to locate where exactly their polling station is to go and then vote in them. So, for instance, as I said earlier on, there are 32 polling stations in here. And so if you enter and then you do not know where your number is, you'd have to be searching, or you have to be combing through each of these classrooms to be able to identify where exactly your number is. And if you find, or if you delay in that particular process, then that would obviously be the only delay factor for you. And again, I think each of the polling centers, I wouldn't say that I've been able to count not more than 100 people or even 50 people in each of these particular classrooms. And so in terms of limited classroom blocks for the voting process to go through, I think there is a lot of classroom blocks where people can actually go in there and then vote. And in each of them also, the numbers are not so much or so huge that they would obviously delay the whole voting process in there. But as I said early on, the only delay process would have to be the fact that you now have to be looking or combing each of these classrooms to be able to identify where your voting center is, to be able to actually cast your votes at the moment.
All right. You spoke with one of the voters, Jabi, and in his statement he said a major problem has been the need for a transparent election in Guinea. What have you seen on the faces of the voters? Are they smiling? Are they showing signs of willingness or happiness to vote?
Well, you're very right, Augustine. Yes, indeed, they are showing signs and happiness and willingness to be a part of this particular process. And interestingly, it seems like the waves of Mamadi Doumbouya is still very high on the faces of these people. And of course, as you rightly know, the history and the story, in the year 2021, Mamadi Doumbouya ousted the former two-time president, who has actually wanted to go through some processes to actually change the constitution. And then that obviously led to his ousting in the year 2021. And at the moment, as you rightly know the story, he promulgated a 12 and 18 months of transitional charter, but then went beyond that. And now is the final day that he has actually decided to let elections be held in the country. And he is also contesting as an independent candidate as well. So we talk to people, and they still have the feeling and the fever of Mamadi Doumbouya. But interestingly, I was also able to have a conversation with some of opposition parties who are also contesting in this particular contest. And it was in French, actually. And generally, his conversation was about the fact that they are also seeking for a change, while the fans of Mamadi Doumbouya are also praying that he continues in this particular, he emerges as the victor in this particular election. But through it all, I can say that there is one sense of unity in the country, irrespective of their political affiliations. There's not been a lot of tension among party agents and then party faithfuls who are here. They really respect the fact that this is Senegal, and they also respect the fact that we have to once again make a statement in terms of saying that, look, Guinea can also make it once again and be part of the countries that are democratically stable and the countries that are democratically relevant in the South region. So generally, as I said, that's been it's been peaceful, it's been calm, and there is a lot of enthusiasm on the part of voters over here.
Just before Abdullah comes in, you mentioned the presence of party observers or agents. But what about regional observers? Are you seeing them, their presence there?
Unfortunately, I have not been able to cite or spot any regional observer in here. Maybe it could be the fact that this is not the main country in focus. And of course, as you rightly know, there are 5 regions in which this particular activity or event is actually happening. And so there may not be, I've not been able to spot any in here at this particular center that I am. But if they are and they are in other parts of the region, then that be it. But at the moment, as I speak to you, I've not been able to spot any either AU or any ECOWAS observer here to be able to also say that indeed I've been able to see them. But if they are in other parts of the region, then so be it.
Well, we know that according to the Electoral Commission in Guinea, polls will close or should close by 6 p.m. Did you get to engage any electoral official where you are, and if they have any plans for, say, when the polls close and they see how people queuing up to cast their ballot?
On that particular score, yes, they have admitted that voting ends in the next almost 1 hour and some few minutes. It's now 4:18, and so by 6 o'clock, voting would obviously end. But the process or what's going to happen is that if you are in queue or if you are in queue and then it is 6 o'clock, you still get the opportunity to cast your vote. But if you are not in queue and you are yet to enter, you will not be allowed to enter because it is a school environment and the school is actually gated. And so from the entrance of it, police personnel would obviously check thoroughly through your particulars and your personality to see what exactly you're coming to do. If you are yet to vote and it is beyond 6 o'clock, trust you me, you will not get the opportunity to actually enter into the yard to come and then vote. But if you are already in the yard and voting is actually ongoing, then you would obviously get the opportunity to actually cast your votes.
Well, I think that'll be it for me, Christopher Tichu. Many thanks for the update.
Many thanks also as well. We'll be still here, and of
Indeed.
course we'll still be monitoring the situation.
Thank you. We will get back to you in subsequent time. But let's bring you this development. Since coming to power in September 2021, after overthrowing former President Alpha Conde, Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, commander of the Guinean elite special forces, has led the country into today's presidential election. Doumbouya seized power in a military coup, citing corruption, poor governance, and constitutional abuses under the Conde's administration. The takeover abruptly ended what many observers described as Guinea's fragile democratic process. Following the coup, the military junta suspended the 2020 constitution and governed under a transitional charter, initially promising a return to civilian rule by the end of 2024. That timeline, however, slipped amid growing domestic unrest and international pressure. In the lead up to today's December 28, 2025 presidential election, the transition authorities have faced mounting accusations of undermining democracy and the rule of law. Major opposition figures have been banned, exiled, or silent, while several political parties have been suspended or dissolved, raising serious concerns about political inclusion and electoral fairness. Aissatou Jallo has more in this report.
Since the 2021 military coup, the transitional government, led by General Mamadi Doumbouya, has strengthened control over political expression. Opposition leaders, activists, and critics have at times been detained, exiled, or prohibited from participating in politics, creating an environment where ordinary citizens may fear repercussions for voicing dissent. Civil society organizations and international observers report intimidation of journalists, human rights defenders, and voters. Many people fear being monitored or arrested or targeted if they openly criticize government policies or the electoral process. Access to media and internet is limited and critical reporting is frequently censored or restricted. Citizens may feel that speaking publicly about controversial issues could draw a negative attention from authorities. Guinea has a history of political instability and repression, including coups and violent crackdowns and protests. This legacy fosters self-censorship among citizens who may avoid speaking out due to past experiences. In some communities, expressing opinions that contradict the dominant political narrative can result in social or professional consequences. Many people in Guinea today refrain from speaking openly due to the risk of arrest, harassment, or intimidation, combined with restricted media and internet freedom and a politically tense environment.
Well, I said to Diallo there in Conakry, we'll be in touch with her shortly. But before then, let's hear from a few Guinean voters in Kankan, what they had to say about the process and the expectations from whoever emerges as the next president of the country.
After the elections, we expected the new president of the republic to restore calm and peace in the country. Above all, he must fight ethnocentrism and work toward uniting Guineans. We want a president who brings people together because Guinea must come first. We also advise the new president to enforce the law because what Guinea lacks today is an end to impunity. Finally, we urge him to think about the poor and vulnerable people.
De penser aux personnes vulnérables.
As a woman trader, we and our sisters want an elected president who will take care of the women of Guinea, especially those in Kanka. Everyone knows that women are suffering greatly today. Women in Kanka have no markets and the situation is very difficult. As for employment, our children have finished school, but there are no jobs.
We want a president of the people, not a figurehead president who only claims democracy and rewards. A president who comes to listen to ordinary people, the farmer in his field, the vendors in the markets, the technicians in their workshop, the workers. A president who listens to them and truly understands their difficulties.
Voices of Guineans there after casting their ballots, and for most of them, what they say is that they want a few changes made and they want to see a progression, particularly in the area of employment for young people. And we're being joined now by Aissatou Diallo, all the way from Conakry. Aissatou, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How is Conakry this very moment as we speak?
Actually, I visited some polling centers, and several polling centers are reporting low turnout, with some stations appearing largely empty, especially at the progresses. And in some locations, only a few voters are arriving to cast their ballots. And the queues seen earlier this morning have thinned considerably. Electoral officials remain at their posts, and polling stations continue operating until the official closing time. But observers note that while the voting process remains calm and orderly, the reduced voter presence may point to voter fatigue or limited public engagement. Let's talk about the atmosphere in Conakry this evening, okay? As I walked around the capital this evening, I've seen many shops and businesses across parts of Conakry remained closed on election day, as traders and workers suspended regular activities to observe the vote. Some closures were due to security measures, while others reflected business owners choosing to participate in the election or wait for developments. Essential services on small vendors continued operating in some areas, but overall, commercial activity was reduced, especially near polling stations and along major roads in Conakry.
I would like to ask Isa too. You did mention at least what some observers did say about the issue of little engagement, before the elections, which may be responsible for why there is a bit of low turnout rate. But is that really the reason? Because I'm thinking that they had almost a month of campaigning. These 9 candidates, they went across the country, across all the prefectures, departments, and districts. And that alone should have sensitized the voters enough to come out and vote.
As I said earlier on, this might be due to limited public engagement. As you heard in the report, in Conakry here, people are afraid to talk, people are intimidated and stuff like that. So that might be the reason for that.
And one crucial issue also to talk about is the participation of women and young people.
Actually, youth and women are participating in Guinea's election process in various ways, with women notably visible at voters and at polling stations. Overall, while both groups are present in the electoral process, advocacy organizations emphasize that greater inclusion, stronger representation and sustained policy attention will be necessary beyond election day for women and young people in Guinea.
Well, answer to, have you observed any reports of maybe irregularities or some minor challenges at the voting centers so far?
Actually, from what I have seen, I have not observed any of those. Everything's going smoothly and calmly.
Looking at women's participation, so far we are aware of just a female candidate. What does that say to the women's participation in these elections?
Actually, it doesn't say much to these women because, as I told you, people are just coming out to vote. Some are saying they're voting because they just need the paper. Okay, the voter's card for a long run. That is why some women are voting and stuff like that. So I think a female candidate being there doesn't mean anything to those women.
Wow, this is concerning. Regarding unemployment, let's talk about reasons for which maybe many of these people are voting or not. What are you hearing from those who voted and complaining about unemployment? Do they believe that their vote would change the result despite the low turnout in the country?
Actually, most of them are saying that President Mamadi Doumbouya is favored here. He's going to win the elections. And probably with Simando 2040, they are hopeful that, yes, that would create more employment for young people in Guinea.
Like we spoke with our reporter here in Dakar, he spoke about some form of challenges where media personnel are facing. There's stringent measures when it comes to the security. How is it like in Conakry and other areas you visited?
Yes, as I am talking to you here as a reporter for you right now, as I told you earlier on, people are very much careful on what they say because of intimidations and stuff like that. So it's like people are afraid of talking. And, that's the case right now here.
Okay, thank you very much. I said to Jalo, we're from Conakry. Many thanks for the briefs and the updates. We'll be talking to you more and keep the information coming. And we wish Guinea a peaceful election process.
Thank you so much.
Today is Guinea's presidential election, the first since the 2021 coup. Join us for the live coverage, debates and reports, minute by minute as the election transpires. 9 candidates, 1 seat. The race to the Guinean presidency is on. Incumbent transitional head, General Mamadi Doumbouya campaigns to transition to a civilian president, and 7 others are in the race for Guinea's top job. Today, over 6.7 million registered voters will deliver their verdicts on who becomes Guinea's next leader. Join West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar and online WADR.org, YouTube and Facebook for a full day's coverage. Guinea decides, WADR covers.
Indeed, Guinea decides, WADR covers. There are a lot coming out of Guinea right now. Abdullah, like you listen to Aisatu, what's about this fear? Why people are not really speaking out? In a time like this, when the country should be transitioning to a democratic state and a democratic form of government where you will have the ability to speak freely.
Well, I wasn't going to allow myself to speak on this, but I have to because you have challenged me to do that. And if anything, anybody from WADR should be able to respond adequately to some of these questions. First off, the answer to that in simple terms is why nobody wants military rule and why military rule is not the most preferred form of governance. So what is happening in Guinea is systemic, it's systematic, and it's also generic. We've seen that happening in Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali. So wherever you have the military, there is usually an excess, or there are excesses when it comes to right violations and freedoms, because they don't want to be challenged. Unlike democracy, where it's open to criticism, where the government comes under the radar, where there's an open assessment by an ordinary citizen, a CSO, whoever this person is, or the group of persons are, to actually criticize the government and recommend better ways of handling issues. The military is never open to this. So Guinea is even gone a bit further than what we see today in the Sahel, because not just journalists today are being arrested and detained and harassed. In fact, there's a record number of missing people today, including artists. And I wonder, in fact, for one of them is even his children were also taken. So you have lawyers, you have journalists, you have medical doctors, you have civil society activists, you have right defenders. The number is just growing day by day. And they are simply missing because they challenged the authority. And as if to say they have no right to do that. And so today, there's also the report about phone calls and text messages in Guinea being monitored. So people are really scared. People are really scared. So nobody wants to say something that you think makes sense but doesn't make sense to the government, and then you have to pay the price for that. I mean, life is precious. You've got your family to live for. So this is why most of them are really afraid to speak. And this is even for people outside Guinea as well, not just in Guinea.
Right. Well, continuing in Guinea with our series of reports dedicated to the presidential election scheduled for today. This time, the focus is on the security situation and governance in the country. Since the military took power in 2021, civil society organizations say there has been a significant decline in human rights protection, marked by forced disappearances like Abdullah was saying, arbitrary arrests and detention, as well as silencing of critical voices. Usma Umar reports.
With a population of 15 million, Guinea elects a new president on December 28 amid persistent security instability. The country faces mounting threats along its border areas, driven by spread of terrorist violence from neighboring countries, Mali and Cote d'Ivoire. These concerns were highlighted by Alseni Farinta Kamara.
Vigilance must be strengthened along all borders, particularly within our regional community, ECOWAS. Member states must enhance security while providing increased support to the alliance of Sahel states, namely Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, so that terrorism and widespread banditry plaguing these countries can be contained. As an African proverb teaches us, when your neighbor's house is on fire, the best thing to do is to rise and bring buckets of water to help put out the flames. Otherwise, that same fire may spread to your own house tomorrow.
According to several civil society organizations, another major threat to Guinea's security lies in the degrading treatment of critical voices within the country. Such practices, they argue, weaken the governance of the military authorities who have been in power since September 5, 2021.
Vous n'êtes pas sans savoir depuis que le régime militaire.
As you are aware, since the military regime came to power on September 5, 2021, and up to present day, Guinean civil society has documented at least 70 people killed by defense and security forces. Yet justice has not taken a single step to clarify the circumstances under which these killings occurred, nor to establish responsibility. Those responsible, including the perpetrators, sponsors and accomplices of these serious crimes, must be brought before the courts and tried and severely punished in accordance with the law.
The persecution of dissenting voices under the current regime is described as a dark stain on governance.
Vous savez que les manifestations, la liberté d'expression.
You know that demonstrations, freedom of expression, freedom of the press, and freedom of association, among many others, are essential pillars of democracy. Calling these fundamental principles into question undermines the very sense of democracy. As a result, we are heading toward or already living under an unprecedented dictatorship and authoritarianism in our country, leading to catastrophic governance.
Gouvernance est catastrophique.
Guinean civil society groups are urging the future president to show greater openness, launch investigations into the reported wave of disappearances, and remain alert to the growing security threats along the nation's borders.
As a special report there put together by Usman Omar looking at the security sector in Guinea. A country where some 6.7 million voters are today casting their vote to elect a new president, which brings an end to the military regime that came to force or came to be in September 2021 after General Mamadou Doumbouya, the transitional president, who also is seeking office, toppled former President Alpha Condé.
Indeed, and with the issues being raised by civil society, human rights groups in the country, I think this election comes at a time that these issues must be addressed by the next president, because these are the issues that are undermining democracy in the country. And it is by far extending to the region, because what happens in Guinea could probably happen in Guinea-Bissau, could probably happen in Sierra Leone, could probably happen in Cote d'Ivoire. And these are realities that are coming out of those countries.
And may even affect neighborly relationship, right? Relations between, say, Guinea and Senegal, Guinea and Liberia, or Guinea and Mali. Because now, when citizens of other countries are really scared of visiting your country for trade and commerce simply because they fear persecution, they fear arrest for commenting on issues they see socially fit to talk about, then of course you know that you are losing out. And the larger implication of this also is that you may have foreign investors losing that confidence in investing in your economy, because of course we know what happens when the report goes wide and far and people report rights abuses, media suppression, and all of that stuff. Of course, it affects your whole portfolio as a country to attract foreign investment. So they need to be taken care of. They need to be taken care of.
And the election also comes very importantly because there are resources in the country. And it is not just about electing a president, but it is about electing a person who understands, who feels the challenges of the people.
Very
now
connected.
we heard about a challenge of job unemployment. Now who knows? You have a country that is into almost 25 or 50 years agreement with the Simandou mines. That
amounts to billions of
dollars. How does that translate to the ordinary Guinean when it comes to young man who graduates and still seeking jobs in 5-10 years after graduating? But you will have a government run by maybe a military or style of governance, but then the citizens are even afraid to come back home in their country, some of whom have left because of insecurity. You talk about neighborly relations.
Yeah.
How will Liberians feel to cross over to Guinea? because they feel that the country might not be safe for them. So it is about solving the bread and butter issues, giving the rights back to the citizens to speak freely, accept the criticisms, and then work on your mistakes, work on the challenges, and not just to be dictatorial. And
Augustine, did you say bread and butter? At this point, Augustine, Africa needs to gear up and move away from just the bread and butter issue, because Africa right now is the New Deal. All the mineral resources we need for what the new cars today, they call them the EVs, electric vehicle, the mobile phones, every other stuff, textile. I mean, just imagine today, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, the two largest producers of cocoa. So Africa needs to move away from this better and bread ideology or survival to really having a sustainable and long-term economic plan for citizens, where at least more than average can really afford a good a quality education, accessible and affordable healthcare services, and at least have access to normal basic necessities in communities. You go to a place where there's no water, and a district head comes in to commission a borehole, and everybody is happy, like, oh, now we have water, as if to say that is not part of the government's responsibility from the start, from the get-go, to have them have good roads, schools, primary healthcare centers to start with, and at least skills and acquisition centers. Because now, if you have this growing number of young people, it's not all of them may be able to really afford education, but then they could go and acquire skills that will make them either employable or be self-employed. So this is not rocket science, but like you said, August, and I agree with you 100 times, and we've spoken to experts who again say this over and over again, that we only just need good leadership, people who understand and connect with their people and listen to the needs of the people. Because sometimes people will tell you what their needs are, but you're not listening. You rather want to adopt a whole new roadmap or a blueprint that is not tailor-made for your people, for your country, or for your society. And so you're right, Augustine.
Yes. What should happen to a young person within the next 7 years from now? That should be the concern now. Where would that young man be? Because when the next president comes to power, in the next 7 years, where will Guinea be? What will they be able to boast about?
Augustine, I will hate to bust your bubble, but I think 7 years is even far. Let's look at 5 years, because now the world is aligned with United Nations SDG goals, which for many, looks at 2030, and the catchphrase there is leaving no one behind. So in terms of education, standard of living, employment status, whatever and however you go about this.
Some form of empowerment.
5 years, at least 5 years. But in the case of Guinea, let's say because of the newly amended constitution that allows the president to sit in power for 7 years, let's do 7 years. That's a good question. And they have every right to be worried and be concerned, because otherwise there's going to be a repeated cycle.
Yeah. And the clock is ticking. Right now. As we move on, we expect something positive, or if not, this will also fall back on the citizens, and it becomes very difficult for them to continuously live in a lifestyle that does not progress, but rather keeps retrogressing. And this should be the concern of not only Guineans, but West Africans, because this is taking place in the context of previous cases where we've seen this, no improvement on the citizenry, and this absolutely just the elite benefiting. Leadership in Africa as a whole, and West Africa is just of no exception. We have military takeovers now. What's the guarantee that this transition will just affect the citizen and not just quote unquote we left from a military form of government to now a democratic form, when the feelings, the action by the leader is still military?
Well,
just take decisions. And
we are not professionals to speak much about this, right? Governance issues. But if you ask me, I think there's gonna be few changes, because now You are going to have a parliament, and at least some of these institutions, maybe the justice system, they would function at least partially independent. And so the voters now will have the tool to really assess the government, and if need be, even ask for a recall. It's possible. Mm-hmm. It's possible. The leadership may not have a change in attitude, but at least the citizens are empowered through their constitutional rights to ask for justice, to ask for fairness, to ask for transparency, to ask for inclusivity. It will be different. It will be different because now they've been given back their rights. This is what it means. I mean, to have a democracy in place.
Yep. Well, as Guineans today vote, authorities have announced complete closure of all land borders, along with restrictions on vehicle movements and flights within the country. This electoral process takes place 4 years after a military coup in 2021, which toppled the civilian government and disrupted the country's fragile democracy. Insecurity in this West African nation is multifaceted, arising from economic hardship, political instability, armed robbery, theft, and threats to press freedom. Sam Sion, a regional security expert, offers an analysis of the current security situation in Guinea.
We appreciate the fact that the government now is in transition to a democratically elected government. That is a positive sign. We hope this sign will not just be for a public glaring to say we are doing democracy formed, but the processes that follow these democratic processes must be followed to the letter. When there is a security trouble in one country, it affects the rest of the countries in the region. This is a test of the abilities of the Guinean government to keep security and peace for the region. Because when these processes are not adhered to, it has led to rebellion, counter-coup d'etat, all of these banditries and kidnappings. We hope these elections in Guinea will bring to an end the process of a coup d'etat in the region.
How possible is it? How does this tie into a military form of government that is transitioning the country to a democratic election?
What's happening right now in Guinea, it will serve as a precedent that all of these countries in our region that have had this so-called coup d'etat, removing democratic elected government from position, coming with military dictatorship, that look, you will have an isolation. I'm sure the reason why the elections in Guinea is being watched carefully by West Africa, the organization of the African Union, the United Nations, and all the international organizations, is because they are watching carefully. If the elections is thwarted, if the election is rigged, if something happens that will threaten the security of the region, that will be an immediate or rapid response in terms of isolating Guinea, in terms of complete isolation, blockade, and other measures of sanction that would deter them from doing so. So I think the processes of Guinea going to election right now by this military leader, General Mohamed Doumbouya, is trying to restore democratic order. But the fact that ECOWAS have election observer going to Guinea, that means there's some form of recognition by ECOWAS to ensure that when that process is held, I don't know the military regime during transition to democratic, but with the same military leader, that is something to watch. We have seen that in West Africa. We saw that in Liberia in 1985. When President Doe, then head of state Doe, did a transition from being the military leader, military dictator, to a democratic elected president in 1985, where I was led the election was rigged, whatever happened, Doe became president. We're seeing the same thing happening right now in Guinea. So let's watch and see. All the West African states, security are the highest state of alert right now watching the process. Some of the politicians who were denied their right to participate, few were granted authority to go ahead. Those that were denied their authority, they are also sitting the while. And those are the threats that pose our region. If you have opposition leader opposed, you oppose them, take them out of the country, you threaten them with arrest and detention. If they come back to contest in political processes, those are threats to our region's security. Because if those opposition that sit outside they want to come back to their country and participate in the democratic process, and they are denied. They tend to find what we call an alternative form. They might come in enemies.
There are reports about insecurity in Guinea. What do you make of this trend, especially even journalists are being kidnapped?
Well, I would say clearly, since the military took over in Guinea, the security situation remains fragile. We can say this publicly. But these allegations of kidnapping, sometimes these allegations as journalists, you all need to investigate those allegations properly, because there are two information that brings out of the country. One of the information coming out of this country, those information are probably, because I don't know how well Guinea is responding to these allegations. When there's an allegation, when there's a report of something happening, if you being accused, your government being accused, if you fail to come out quickly, rapidly respond to that information, that gap is filled in with lies, rumors, and assumptions. So I think our international partner, the U.S. Embassy, the French Embassy, and other Western embassies, Human Rights Watch, all the international organizations that watching Guinea have been watching it. So watching Guinea go to election, we should celebrate it. I think we should do that because it will turn to normalized security.
Liberia is a neighbor to Guinea. There has been this issue about crossing over, and sometimes these crossover happen not just at the main border, but at riverside, at some level of land side, but deep into the forests. What do you make of this situation on this election day?
I can tell you for sure, Guinea and Liberia, we have porous borders. It is difficult, or it's probably impossible, to have immigration security authority to monitor all of the border between Liberia and Guinea, Guinea and Sierra Leone, Guinea and Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea and these places. The reason being, the official crossing points are manned by immigration and other security officials. But the rest of the border, like you said, are bushes, are rivers, are other places. It's difficult to mind. So as a result, people cross over. The crossing over is difficult for any security sector to say we able to control it. We can try to minimize it, but it can never be eradicated because Liberia alone got more than 100 plus border crossing points that are unofficial into Guinea. Liberia got several border crossing points into Ivory Coast. The same thing to Sierra Leone, the same thing to Cote d'Ivoire. So the official border points are there. That's why in the region, we've been coordinating our work with other security agencies so we can minimize what we call transnational criminals that you take advantage of the border to terrorize, smuggle goods, auto theft committed, steal vehicle, and bring it across to the other borders. That's why ECOWAS have put together what we call right now as rapid force, even though they have not provided that funding, but the focus will be how we control the entrance of migrants from other neighboring countries. We are monitoring, see what the outcome will look like. Once the process is complete, elections is held in a couple of days or weeks, we got to know who win the election, then we can do an accurate assessment of the security situation not only in Guinea but across the region and see how the response look like.
Sam Sion is a regional security expert there speaking.
Well, we would like to again thank you for being a part of the third edition of WADR's live coverage of the presidential election in Guinea. We started since, as early as 7 a.m. I've been on it, and we'll be bringing up minute to minute, hour to hour update, especially on our social media platforms on radio. We've been in here, English and French, bringing you the updates. Mustafa Jakiti will be here live from 5 p.m. for more updates and expert analysis of the elections in Guinea. Also be reminded that polls will close by 6 p.m.
Sure.
And according to the Electoral Commission, provisional results should be expected within 48 hours.
That's 2 days.
That's 2 days. That's what they said. Well, many thanks to the technicians that made this possible. Mustafa Sek, Maujo Juf, Ismaila Kamara. We have the social media team, Francis Boniface, Umo Daniego, Sheikh Injai, Michael Temu. Of course, Adi on the field, Esatu Jalo, Christopher Ticho, Sankule Janko, the executive producer. Many thanks. I am Abdullahi Hassan and
I am Augustine Curley. Thank you for being with us.
This is the live coverage of the 2025 presidential election in Guinea.